networking is a very deep pool of knowledge that I have just the surface layer of this. So I'm going to introduce you to what networking in Docker is, but recognize that we're just scratching the surface here. Like, there are people that their entire job is just working on networking stuff. So I'm not going to pretend that I have that kind of knowledge here. So let's come back to our terminal. If you say Docker network ls, you should see something akin to this. I think this Docker node one is I have from a previous Kubernetes project, but you probably see bridge, host, and null. Those are the three you very likely are seeing right now. I could probably even just say Docker network remove that one. Okay, so now you can see I just have three. And I imagine you see something akin to that, right? So Docker allows you to one, connect to the default bridge network, which is called bridge, right? And that's the one that we're going to be working with is bridge networks. And then this allows you to connect two containers to each other, right? So if I have this particular microservice that needs to talk to this particular microservice, I can create a Docker network that allows the two containers to talk to each other, right? It's kind of the idea here. In general, they don't recommend that you use the default bridge network. They ask you to create your own. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say Docker network create -- driver equals bridge. And then you can call whatever you want, but we're going to call ours appnet because I'm creative. So now if we say Docker network ls, you can see here we have an appnet bridge, right? So now we have like an arbitrary network that we can connect various containers to, and then any containers that are connected to that network can talk to each other. So let's connect something to it. Let's connect a running MongoDB server to this network. So MongoDB, for those of you that don't know, is a NoSQL database. It's one of my personal favorites. It's familiar to a lot of Node developers, but it allows you to speak JSON to a database, and it's unstructured, which is great. So I'm going to say Docker run -d -- network equals app-net. Then I have to expose the port that it's on, which is 27017, 27017. That's the default MongoDB one. We're going to give it a name of DB. You could be more creative than that. I'm just lazy. --rm to remove it at the end. And we're going to do Mongo:3. There is a newer version of Mongo, but let's just everyone stick to 3 because that's all. I have all the drivers working for Mongo 3 as well. Okay, so you should run that, and it'll start up in the background. So now if I say Docker ps, I should see that I have a Mongo server that's probably still starting up. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start a second Mongo container, because the Mongo container contains both MongoD, which is actually the server that runs in the background. It also contains the Mongo client. So I'm going to use one container to talk to the other container. Does that make sense? So let's try it. You're going to say Docker run -it -network equals app-net --rm, and we're going to get the Mongo 3 container, and we're going to say --host db. Oh, I have to type Mongo again. So after you type Mongo 3, we want it to run the Mongo client, right? This is the command we're giving it. Okay, so Docker run -it network equals appnet --rm Mongo 3. Mongo, which is actually say run the Mongo client, right? Like the database client where you can connect to it and run queries against it, right? And then --host db, right? So what's cool about this is I called this db, right, up here in the names. That's going to make the URL of db, right, instead of like localhost, it's going to be db connects to the other one on the network called db, right? Does that make sense? So if I run this, it should drop me into MongoDB, which it did, right? So if I say show DBs, it'll say I can see that there's that, and I can say use tester. Okay. So now then I can say db.someCollection.insert1 x:1. Wow, I'm impressed with myself that I remembered how to do that. Okay, so now if I say like show collections, I've created a sum collection here anyway. Point being, this is a real database. It's storing stuff somewhere, which is another MongoDB container. Now I could use volumes to have this MongoDB instance write out to a volume, and then this would be persistent between runs as well, right? I'm not doing that right now because that's not the point of this, but the point here is that I have this Mongo container over here talking to this Mongo container over there. And just to kind of prove my point, if I say docker ps in a different shell, you can see here I have one Mongo 3 here, and this is running on 2707, or this one is rather, and this one's called DB, right? That's actually the running database. And you can see here if I say docker top DB, it's running MongoD, right?
MongoD.
What's that?
MongoD.
MongoD, something like that, yeah.
And they're talking to each other because they're on the same network?
Yeah, they're allowed to, right? Because they're both connected to AppNet. And so now DB inside of this one refers to this database particularly. So if you say ping http://db, it'll hit the other container over there. Does that make sense?
So the volumes would be in the DB database?
You'd connect the volumes to this one, yeah, to DB. And then you can configure Mongo where it stores its data. You would just configure it to store the data on the volume. And then to read it when it starts back up. I'm showing you how to do this by hand again, because I'm going to show you then later how to not do this by hand, right? Typically, you're not going to be messing with Docker networks directly. You're going to have tools that are setting those networks for you. But I want to show you there's really no mystery here. You can do it by hand. So I'm going to leave DB running. If I say docker ps, you can see the DB is still running. And we're going to write a node application that speaks to the Mongo.